You ever notice how the truth always seems to vanish the moment people start paying attention to it? It's almost funny how the world claims to love honesty, yet buries it the second it starts making them uncomfortable. They call it censorship, but it's really fear. Fear of waking up, fear of questioning, fear of seeing what's been right in front of them all along. People want comfort, not clarity. They want the illusion of freedom, not the weight of truth. Because truth doesn't pat you on the back, it shakes you, burns you, exposes the parts you've been hiding. The truth isn't hidden. It never was. It's right there, sitting in plain sight, waving at you from between the cracks of what they call normal. But people walk past it every day like it's invisible. Not because it's hard to find, but because it's hard to face. You see, most people don't really want truth. They want comfort dressed as reason. They want to sleep peacefully in the illusion that everything's under control, that the ones in charge know what they're doing, that the world is fair, balanced, and safe. It's easier to believe the bedtime story than to face the monster telling it. The truth burns. It doesn't come wrapped in silk and smiles. It slaps, it scars, it strips away every convenient lie you've been fed. And once it touches you, it leaves a mark you can't scrub off. You start seeing through things you used to believe in. You start questioning voices you used to trust. And that's when the fear kicks in. Not of the truth itself, but of the world you built on top of lies. Because when the truth shows up, it doesn't just knock on your door. It kicks it down and asks, "So, still pretending?" They'll tell you the truth is complicated, mysterious, unreachable. But it's not. It's just uncomfortable. It asks questions people aren't brave enough to answer. Like why we glorify chaos but punish honesty. Why we build systems that profit from pain. Why we worship people who entertain us but ignore the ones who enlighten us. It's all upside down, and everyone knows it, but no one wants to admit it. Because admitting it means changing something. And change, real change, is the one thing people fear more than lies. That's why they call the truth dangerous. Not because it kills, but because it frees. And a free mind is the hardest thing to control. The ones pulling the strings don't care about your opinions, your likes, your posts. They care about your obedience. They want you predictable, soft, distracted. Because a distracted population is a docile one. They'll feed you fear, entertainment, outrage, just enough to keep you reactive, never reflective. And when someone stands up and says, "Hey, maybe we should look deeper," that's when the alarms go off. That's when they start deleting, censoring, silencing, not to protect you, but to protect themselves. Because the truth isn't profitable. Lies are. Fear sells. Division distracts. Confusion controls. And the more lost people feel, the easier they are to lead. The truth, though, it breaks that spell. It reminds people they have power. It reminds them that reality isn't what they've been told. It's what they choose to see. But you can't sell that. You can't patent awareness. You can't brand freedom. So instead, they teach people to fear it, to label truth as conspiracy, to mock the ones who seek it, to turn curiosity into crime. You ever notice how the loudest voices always preach peace, but never allow questions? They tell you what to think, how to feel, what's acceptable, and what's dangerous. But here's the irony. If something is truly harmless, it doesn't need protection. If something is true, it can survive questions. The only reason they censor, suppress, or fact-check is because deep down, they know something doesn't add up. You can smell the desperation in how quickly they rush to silence anything that doesn't fit their script. The truth isn't hidden. It's being smothered under the weight of their own fear. But the funny thing about truth is, it's patient. It doesn't need permission to exist. It just waits. It waits for cracks to form in the facade. It waits for the noise to die down. It waits for the moment when someone like you, finally gets tired of pretending. And once you see it, really see it, the world never looks the same again. You start noticing patterns in conversations, headlines, advertisements, politics. Everything starts to connect like a web. And you realize that the truth was never complex. It was just inconvenient. People say ignorance is bliss. But that's only true if you've never tasted awareness. Because once you do, ignorance starts to feel like suffocation. You can't laugh at the same jokes. You can't nod along to the same lies. You can't find comfort in the same illusions. You become an outsider in a world obsessed with fitting in. But there's beauty in that exile. Because while everyone else is chasing the next distraction, you're chasing something real. And real always outlasts fake. Always. So no, the truth isn't hidden. It's not buried in secret documents or encrypted codes. It's right in front of you, plain and raw. The only reason most can't see it is because they've built walls out of denial and fear. They've convinced themselves that it's safer not to know. But the truth doesn't disappear just because you look away. It waits, watching. Waiting for the moment when you're ready to stop living in the lie and start living in the light, even if that light burns. They told you to play it safe, didn't they? To follow the rules, keep your head down, don't make too much noise. They said patience is a virtue, that your time will come if you just keep doing what you're told. But here's the joke. They never intended for your time to come. They trained you to wait, to obey, to believe that good things happen to those who sit quietly in line while the loud ones take everything. And the cruelest part, you believed them. You believed that playing nice, being humble, staying silent would somehow get you noticed in a world that rewards noise, not nobility. They don't tell you that the system isn't built for dreamers. It's built to feed on them. It thrives on your effort, your obedience, your silence. Every day you give your time, your energy, your thoughts, and in return, they give you just enough to keep you coming back. A paycheck that barely covers the cost of your exhaustion. A pat on the back that fades the second you turn around. They've mastered the art of control without chains. Because they don't need to imprison you physically when they've already imprisoned your mind. They call it stability. They dress it up in words like responsibility and maturity. But what they really mean is conformity. Do what everyone else does. Think what everyone else thinks. Want what everyone else wants. Be another face in the crowd, another cog in their machine, because individuality scares them. Unpredictable minds break patterns, and patterns are how they maintain control. So they label rebellion as recklessness, ambition as greed, and freedom as madness. They build cages and call them careers. They build hierarchies and call them success. But tell me, how long can someone live pretending to be okay with a life that feels borrowed? How long can you smile while suffocating in the expectations of people who never cared about your dreams in the first place? They tell you not to chase what's risky, but risk is the only thing that ever created change. Every person who ever made history ignored the rules. Every revolution began with someone saying, "No more." Yet now, they've made rebellion a taboo word. They want you comfortable. Because comfort kills hunger. Comfort kills fire. Comfort kills you long before death does. They'll tell you that being different makes you difficult. That wanting more means you're ungrateful. That standing up means you're arrogant. But that's how they twist it. They manipulate the language of morality to keep you small. They make you question yourself until you become your own jailer. You stop needing anyone to tell you no. You start doing it for them. That's how they win, not by fighting you, but by convincing you that resistance is pointless, that your dream is impossible, that you're asking for too much. But think about it. Who benefits from your doubt? Who gains when you give up? The world doesn't change because the powerful allow it. It changes because someone refuses to accept the script. The ones who rise aren't chosen. They choose themselves. They stop waiting for permission and start taking risks. They stop apologizing for wanting more. Because the truth is, nobody's coming to save you. No miracle. No sign. No secret shortcut. Just you and the choices you make when no one's watching. You see, people don't fail because they can't. They fail because they're afraid to. They're terrified of rejection, of judgment, of falling flat. So they never jump. They sit at the edge, watching others soar, convincing themselves they weren't meant to fly. But the only thing holding them back is the voice that says, "What if? What if it doesn't work? What if I lose everything?" But the real question should be, what if you don't try? What if this version of your life, the one that's quietly killing you, is the real failure? They don't censor you with force. They do it with fear. Fear of standing out, fear of being mocked, fear of losing approval. But approval is a leash. It keeps you chasing validation that will never fill you. You bend yourself to fit into spaces that were never built for you. You dim your light so others don't feel small around you. You wear masks so you don't make people uncomfortable with your truth. And the more you do it, the more you forget who you really are, until one day, you wake up and realize you've become exactly what they wanted. A version of yourself that's easy to manage, easy to predict, easy to forget. But the funny thing is, No matter how hard they try, they can't kill the whisper inside you. That small, relentless voice that says, "There's more." It's the voice that keeps you awake at night, the one that stirs when you see someone living free. It's not envy, it's recognition. A reminder of what you could be if you stopped waiting for permission. If you stopped believing that safety and happiness are the same thing. Safety protects you from pain, but it also protects you from greatness. They want you to stay distracted, obedient, and afraid. Because if you ever stop and really look at the game, you'll realize it's rigged, but not unbeatable. Once you stop playing by their rules, their power collapses, because their control depends on your cooperation. That's why they tell you to wait, to be patient, to stay quiet. Because the moment you decide to stop waiting, you become dangerous. Not in the way they describe you, but in the way that threatens their illusion. You ever notice how the world tells you to trust the process? Sounds nice, doesn't it? Like some poetic little phrase that makes the pain feel meaningful. But here's what they don't say. The process they want you to trust was never designed for you to win. It's designed to keep you busy while they move the goalposts. They tell you, be patient. Your time will come. But time doesn't come for those who wait. It comes for those who disrupt. You've been told to follow the rules, walk in straight lines, and color inside the boxes. But the cruel truth, the people who made those boxes never lived inside them. They built them for you. It's funny, really. You grow up being told there's a certain way things are done. Get the degree, get the job, pay the bills, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get to taste happiness before you die. They hand you a checklist disguised as destiny. But what happens when you start checking off every box and still feel empty? They say you must have missed something, that maybe you didn't work hard enough. But no, you didn't miss anything. The checklist itself was a trap, a system to make you think progress means obedience. And once you realize that, you start to see how the whole thing runs on illusion. They call it order. I call it control. They dress it in routines, rules, and expectations. And they make you believe breaking away from it means failure. They feed you fear in small doses, every day, until you swallow it without choking. Don't quit, you'll regret it. Don't dream too big. You'll get hurt. Don't stand out, you'll get crushed. Every warning is wrapped in concern, but it's really a leash. They keep you trapped in their comfort zone, but disguise it as your own. And you start to mistake comfort for peace. But let's be honest, peace doesn't come from playing small. It comes when you stop pretending you're satisfied with crumbs. When you start craving something more than survival. Because survival isn't living, it's enduring. And you weren't created just to endure. There's a part of you that's been screaming under your skin, begging to come out. You've buried it under logic, under fear, under the weight of what others think. You call it doubt, but it's really desire, a hunger to see how far you can go before you break. Because that's where life begins, the edge. They want you tame, predictable, polite. They want you to think ambition is arrogance, that confidence is sin. Because if you ever understood how powerful you really are, their entire structure would fall apart. The world doesn't run on truth. It runs on control. And the most effective kind of control isn't physical. It's psychological. Make someone doubt themselves, and they'll cage their own mind. They'll convince themselves that their dream is too big, their timing is too late, their worth is too small. That's how they win. By never having to lift a finger. But if you're starting to see through it, even just a little, you've already become dangerous. Because once awareness creeps in, obedience becomes impossible. You start asking questions that make people uncomfortable. You start noticing how everything is designed to keep you asleep. Your media, your distractions, your so-called role models. Everything's a lullaby. And the moment you stop listening to it, you wake up to how much of your life was spent chasing approval from people who were just as lost as you. You'll see how they laugh at dreamers, how they ridicule the brave, because those who dare to think differently expose the cowardice of the crowd, and the crowd hates mirrors. They'd rather destroy the reflection than face it. So when you step out of line, they'll call you crazy, delusional, dramatic. They'll say you've changed. And they'll be right. You did. You stopped pretending. You stopped apologizing for wanting more. You stopped living by their script and started writing your own. That's what they fear the most. Someone who doesn't need their approval to exist. And the thing about truth is, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how everything's connected. The lies, the manipulation, the false humility. You realize how often people hide behind religion, politics, or morality, just to justify their fear of being different. They talk about virtue, but live in denial. They preach humility, but crave attention. They talk about destiny, but never chase it. You start to see through all of it. Their smiles, their systems, their stories. You stop hearing their words, and you start hearing their fear. That's when the shift happens. You no longer crave validation. You no longer need to fit in. You start valuing silence over noise, solitude over company, purpose over popularity. You stop waiting for permission to rise. Because finally you understand. The world doesn't give power, it takes it. And the only way to keep yours is to stop giving it away. Every time you doubt yourself, you hand them your control. Every time you seek approval, you let them decide your worth. And once you stop doing that, once you reclaim that authority, everything changes. The people who once pitied you will start to envy you. The ones who mocked your ambition will try to imitate it. And the ones who ignored you will suddenly remember your name. That's the irony. First they doubt you, then they need you. But by the time they see your value, you won't need theirs. You'll have already moved beyond the illusion they built, watching it crumble behind you like smoke. Because in the end, it's not about the system collapsing. It's about you realizing you were never trapped inside it. You just forgot that the lock was on your side of the door. You know what's funny? People spend their whole lives chasing after things they were never even meant to hold. They call it ambition, success, or destiny. But most of the time, it's just noise. They run around, trying to prove something to everyone who never cared, collecting trophies for a game they don't even like. And when they finally sit alone, when there's no applause, no audience, no distraction, they realize how hollow it all feels. Because the truth is, it's not the chase that breaks you. It's the silence after it. That moment when you realize you were running in circles, mistaking movement for progress. The world has a cruel sense of humor. It convinces you that fulfillment lies somewhere out there, some job, some house, some person. So you keep running, always reaching, never arriving. And in the process, you lose yourself piece by piece. You trade authenticity for acceptance, peace for performance, truth for attention. You wear masks, not because you like them, but because the world doesn't reward the unfiltered version of you. It only rewards the one that fits its mold, the one that smiles even when it's breaking inside. They'll tell you, fake it till you make it. Sounds smart, right? But what they don't tell you is that if you fake it long enough, you forget what's real. You start living like a puppet, performing the same act every day, hoping someone will clap loud enough to make you feel alive. But applause doesn't heal emptiness. It just distracts you from it. And the more you depend on it, the more you become addicted to the illusion of validation. They don't teach you how dangerous that is. They don't warn you that approval is one of the most expensive drugs in the world. Because once you start craving it, you'll do anything to get another hit. There's a point, though, where everything cracks. That's when the truth begins to whisper. It's soft at first, almost polite. But the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Until one day, it screams. It screams in your failures, your loneliness, your frustration. It shows up in sleepless nights and silent prayers. It's the part of you that knows you were meant for more, but not the more they taught you to chase. Not the shiny, hollow version of success they sell in pretty packaging. The real kind, the kind that comes with peace, the kind that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. You see, the real battle isn't between you and the world. It's between you and your reflection. Every morning, that mirror challenges you. It asks, are you being honest with yourself? But most people don't answer honestly. They avoid eye contact, rush the routine, put on the face the world wants to see. Because deep down, they know the reflection doesn't lie. It sees what others can't. The exhaustion of pretending, the weight of suppressing, the hunger for something real. And that's the scariest part about truth. It doesn't need to shout. It just waits. When you start facing that reflection, really facing it, everything changes. You start realizing how much energy you've wasted trying to fit in rooms that were never meant for you. How many times you've silenced your own voice just to keep the peace. How often you've betrayed yourself in the name of being liked. And that realization, it hurts, it burns, but it also cleanses. Because the same truth that breaks you is the one that rebuilds you. It destroys the illusion so you can finally meet the person hiding underneath it. Most people never get there. They live and die in performance. They think they're protecting themselves by blending in. But what they're really doing is erasing themselves. It's easier to be accepted than to be authentic. Easier to copy than to create. But here's the thing. Ease never leads to greatness. You can't discover who you are by following the crowd. You have to be willing to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to be called crazy. Because only the ones who are brave enough to be different ever find what's real. And when you finally stop running, when you sit with the silence you used to fear, you'll realize it's not your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the space where you learn what truly matters. You'll see that half the things you were chasing never belonged to you. They were just distractions, meant to keep you from finding yourself. You'll learn that peace isn't found in possessions, in money, or in recognition. It's found in alignment. When your actions, words, and beliefs finally stop contradicting each other, that's when you feel free. People won't understand it. They'll think you've lost your mind. They'll wonder why you've stopped caring about what everyone else is doing. But that's the moment you'll know you've escaped the trap. Because the system thrives on your insecurity. It depends on you believing you're not enough. The second you realize you are, everything it built around you loses its power. The opinions, the expectations, the noise, it all fades. You stop living for applause and start living with purpose. That's when things start to shift. Doors open that were never meant to be opened before. You attract people who don't just see your mask, they see your essence. You stop competing because you realize no one can take what's meant for you. And that's the most dangerous kind of freedom. The kind that doesn't need to be proven. Because once you have that, they can't manipulate you anymore. They can't shame you, guilt you, or control you. You become unpredictable, unshakable, untamed. And maybe that's what they've always feared the most. Not your success, not your confidence, not your potential, but your awakening. Because the moment you stop being who they want you to be, the whole illusion begins to crumble. The show ends, the masks fall, and the truth, the one they've spent their whole lives hiding from, finally walks in through the front door. You know what people hate the most? Not being in control. They love to pretend they've got everything figured out. Their plans, their routines, their timelines. But life doesn't care about your plans. It's got a way of flipping the script right when you start feeling comfortable. You think you're steady. Then boom, a twist you never saw coming. And that's when you see what people are really made of. Some break, some beg, some finally start listening. Because the truth is, control was never real. It was a comfort blanket for fragile minds. The moment the illusion slips, reality starts talking, and it doesn't whisper politely. It screams. People like to say, everything happens for a reason. They toss it around like some magic spell to make the pain easier to swallow. But deep down, they don't believe it. They just need something to keep them from falling apart, because reasons don't always show up wrapped in explanations. Sometimes, the reason you lost something, the reason you were rejected, or the reason everything went dark, has nothing to do with punishment, and everything to do with positioning. You were being moved, pushed, prepared. But you couldn't see it because you were too focused on the loss. It's a funny thing how pain has a way of cleaning up what comfort never could. When you're comfortable, you get lazy. You stop questioning, stop growing. But pain shakes you awake. It strips you down to your rawest form, forces you to face the parts of yourself you've been running from. It doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up, uninvited, and tears down everything you built out of pride. That's how transformation happens. Not in the moments where everything's going right, but in the ones where everything falls apart. You ever notice how people only pray when things go wrong, when they're broke, lost, or desperate? It's like they only remember they have a soul when the world starts burning around them. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the fire isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to expose what's real. Because when everything you leaned on collapses, you finally see what was holding you up. And sometimes it wasn't